Welcome to Liner Notes. My name is David Bixler. The shoes that grace the cover of Orrin Evans' new record are special shoes from his childhood that were necessitated by being born with neurofibromatosis. The record is called Walk a Mile in My Shoe, and the shoes are a reminder of his condition and the impact that this neurological disorder has had on him. However, Evans yearns to move past this initial metaphor of the title in order to convey the ideas of feeling worthy and taking ownership of his journey. In this episode of Liner Notes, Orrin talks about the music, the musicians, and the music business. Welcome, Orrin Evans, and got a new record out, Walk a Mile in My Shoe, on your own label, Amani Records, and it's coming out August 16th.
When can I hear a tick? When can I hear a tick? Call home. Well, can I hear a tick? Well, can I hear a tick? When can I hear a tick? Call home. Coughing at the tavern. Society's without a vacancy.
Welcome to Liner Notes.
Good to be here.
I want to first start with the title of the recording. I want to say also this is with the Captain Black Big Band. I believe this is the 5th recording with the band. In the notes, there's kind of like 2 levels of where you're talking about the meaning, right? And one of them, a little more generic, and you say, Walk a Mile in My Shoe is about feeling worthy and taking ownership of the journey. But then maybe a little more personal, a little more profound, your quote is, this record is me opening the door into what I've lived for years. And I read that you suffered from neurofibromatosis. So maybe let's start there and, explain about this record, how this motivated you to produce this music at this point in life.
Well, so I'll start with the question everybody's probably, what is neurofibromatosis? And honestly, after having it for 50 years of my life, I can't really tell you, except that I know, and that's basically because I don't have neurofibromatosis. I have the effects of it. And it can, different types of things can happen. Your body can be deformed in different ways. You could have, warts or anything. And for me, it was my foot. My foot was deformed, and it's basically it's the same disease that the Elephant Man had. So the Elephant Man, it had his face. Thank God it didn't affect this beautiful face, but it did my foot. And so when I was born, and it's funny because my wife just found some other pictures today. When I look, and even the shoes on the cover of the record, people can't really see it because they're baby shoes and the way that the photographer took it. But if you look at it, and which I'm glad he did, Christopher Cahill, if you look closely, the left shoe is much bigger. So, I was born, this is huge. It wasn't a club foot, but I guess that's the easy way to explain it to everybody. And saying all that, and I had 8 operations by the time I was in the 3rd grade to get to the point that I could wear regular shoes. So I can't wear all the shoes that everybody wears. And as I get older, the effects of that, with arthritis and my joints and, so now I have the cane and I walk with that. I don't have it all the time. But the reason I start with that is now that I'm a parent, well, I've been one for 30 years, but as a parent, it took me probably until now to really understand the strength of my parents. I have a handicap sign in my car now, but my mother never called me handicapped. I was never told I couldn't do anything. I went swimming, even though I was very self-conscious about how my foot looked. I still was always hey, you could do it. I played soccer, I played basketball, I played football. It wasn't until maybe 20 years old or 21 years old when it got to the point that I couldn't run anymore. But I ran on the track team in high school and middle school. So I say all that to say my parents never said, hey, they did tell me you're special, but not special in the sense of my foot, you know. They're like, go ahead out there and you can do it. So this record for me is, you know, I've been waiting for years. I've said this in so many interviews. I've said it, you know, in some of my newsletters. But I have to keep on no matter what, no matter whether it's these labels don't come at me, or, you know, or if I don't get the European tour, I still have to keep doing it. If I don't get, you know, take my band on the road, when I'm looking at some of my peers take their bands on the road, or I'm seeing students who I just finished teaching, you know, tour all over the world, and I'm told I still can't do it yet. You know, no one knows you, but I know all of those people. So with that being said, I didn't realize until now that journey of living through those surgeries and living through what I had, you know, to deal with my foot was actually a constant reminder of how I can never stop doing what I'm doing. And I can never accept no as an answer. And that doesn't mean be a jerk or be it whatever. But for years, everyone knows I was on Smoke Session Records. This record isn't on Smoke Session Records. This is not a you know, to talk about Smoke or Paul Stash in any negative way. He just didn't want to take the risk of the timing. And it makes sense, you know, because he's like, this is what we should do. And I said, no, we got to do this record now. And urgency is a little different for me because of those things. You know, I want to go on, you know, road more as a band leader, but I'm also nervous about how much traveling I can really do as things progress. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to be going through the airport in a wheelchair, you know? So when I hear people say, well, you could do that next year. You should do that project next year. I can't really understand that. So this is me saying walk a mile in my shoe, and then you'll understand the urgency and why I need to do these things, because I don't want to have regrets. That's the only way I'm going to have regrets. I don't have a regret any other place. I don't regret being married. I don't regret becoming a father. I don't regret moving to Philly. So why would I hold off doing anything else that is important to me when I know there's a possibility, damn, I should have done that before I couldn't walk anymore, or damn, I should have done that, you know, before. I don't want that. I want it. So this record is, if you had the opportunity to put on my shoe, you'd understand why I need to do everything that I'm doing and why I do it in the way that I do it, because I have no other choice, you know, and that's not a negative thing.
Is the motivation that you're speaking of now, do you think that that's something that you was either unconscious as a motivator in like, you know, let's say 20 years ago in the music you were producing, or is it something that you were thinking about that you just weren't ready to share with the public, with your fans?
I mean, I think the motivation was always in me for that reason. You know, I knew that at a certain point, some things were going to change for me health-wise. Luckily, it's just movement-wise. I'll put it to you like that, movement-wise. So I've always been aware of that. But my drive and dedication to this art form, I think, comes more from my parents. And both of them were artists, and different disciplines, but they were both artists. So they always said, you could do this. And even though when they said you can do this as a baby, when I was a baby, they were talking about you can walk, you can run, you can ride a bike, you can do that. But then as I got older, it came into the same thing. And you can put your own records out. You could tour, you could just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And so I think that motivation was in there, but the motivation has changed over the years just as my situation progresses.
Okay. As I mentioned before, I believe this is your 5th recording with this band. A couple questions about the band and the recording. This record features 4 different vocalists, and 7 out of the 9 tracks are, feature singers. I heard the band one time before at the Standard, pre-COVID, actually, when the Standard still existed, right? I don't believe there was a vocalist on the gig. Like, what was the impetus for including this music and these singers? And as I was, doing like some web poking around, it looks like they're all kind of Philly-based or South Jersey part of that orbit of your life?
Well, that's a great question because it goes right back to the question you just asked. This record is a product of me being told no for the past 10 years. There were vocals on Presence that was not Grammy nominated, but those tunes were cut from the record. There's vocals on the last big band record that I'm going blank on. There were vocals on that record too. And they just didn't make the record because for whatever reason, I wasn't in total control of the record. I've also sang on 2 of my records and they didn't make it on there. So it kind of shows where the now is the time and walk a mile in my shoe because I've been told no for whatever reason, for the last 5-6 years, that now it's like, oh, when did you have vocals in the band? Vocals have been in the band. My mother was a singer. I love singing. It's just that every time it got to the point to do this record, there were reasons why I shouldn't do it at that point. So over the last 4 years, I've been doing different projects and I was able to have Diane Reeves sing with the band. Kurt Elling, we just did something, he sang with the band. And Lisa Fisher sang with the band and Bilal. So, and then the other folks that Paul Juice and Joanna Pascal have sang with the band. Joanna's been in the band probably 15 years. And there's a whole book of her music, but we just, every time we're going to do this tune, we wouldn't do those tunes for whatever reason. And then after connecting with Lisa Fisher on another gig, a Danny Melnick production, it just started a relationship. And I've loved Lisa Fisher for years. So it was a great opportunity to perform with her. Paul Juice, as you know, is from Jersey. I met him here in Philadelphia. Loved playing with him, and really just thought he would be great on the tune that both tunes that he's on. And as I said, Joanna Pascal, I've known since she was 14 years old. We go back that far. And Bilal, same deal. I met Bilal when he was maybe 12 or 13. Bilal and Joanna Pascal were in the same class in high school. So thank you for what you just said, because you proved how important it is to tell your story and to do your thing, because no matter when you tell it, even though it's been a part of your story, it's new to everybody. And you wonder why. It's like, oh, because I didn't tell you before. I just didn't grab the mic and tell you before. So vocals are new. Vocals with Captain Black Big Band are going to be something new to the listeners and the fans. But we've been doing it for so long, and I'm really excited to get that side of us as a band out there. Because even, man, it's funny. I even had a producer say, well, your band is more experimental and it's more free, and all the words are just annoying me, raucous or whatever that word is I'm going to play. But I don't know. Maybe we should get a drummer that's more used to big band and tighten up the band and get it. No, first of all, you suck, because that's not how my band sounds. And that's another reason for doing this record with vocals. It's like, watch us play the parts. Watch us be extremely musical with the greats. Someone as great as Diane Reeves, someone as great as Lisa Fisher, someone as great as Paul Juice. So, that's the other part of telling your story. It removes all the assumptions, because we are a world where we've made our own assumptions. So, I'll do it myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to that person. I don't know why. And then I listen to the record and I'm like, woo, this record is killing. So I'm trying to kill all or maybe I've heard that person play one time and been like, they don't sound good. And then for the rest of their life, they're blamed on that one experience. And that's what this record is about. If you think you know Captain Black Big Band, you need to buy this record, because you don't.
Towns, and I've heard me some big talk, but there's a thing that I know. Oh, man is a two-faced, he's
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I mean, some of the stuff is just seriously tipping, and what would stereotypical big band. I'm not using that in a negative way, but then you have a tune like Him, which is just kind of flows and is freeing, and both of them sound completely organic and authentic. So I think you've made the point there. I want to jump into the material. Man, it's like all over the map. You have Overjoyed, Blues in the Night, If, for example. What was the criteria for tune selection? Or did the arrangers bring them in?
That's the second time that this question has been asked, and I love it because the answer is probably not what anybody thinks. I don't own the music. And when I mean that, I don't mean mechanicals or publishing or any of that. I just mean music in general. So I have a different, which might mean, which may be a reason why a producer would say, oh, your band is whatever. I let the music happen, and I want everyone to be comfortable. So the way that the tunes were picked for this record, especially because of the vocals, one, I already knew what Joanna. I'd been playing that song with Joanna for years. So that one was a no-brainer. Sunday in New York, or New York and Sunday, that one. I always mess that title up. I've been messing it up for years. I'm like, is it New York on Sunday or Sunday in New York? Anyway, lovely song. And also being from Philly and Peter Nero, just a great song. But that was already in the books. Joanna already knew it. Dislocation Blues came to us 10 years ago, and it's been in the book, and I never had anybody to do it. And If, all of those. So what I did was I put all the songs that we had together, and I just sent them to the vocalists. I said, what do you feel comfortable singing? So there's a combination of them picking what they, these vocalists picking what they thought they would sound best on, and then me making the story fit so that everyone's comfortable. Blues in the Night isn't even originally, that's a scaled down version of an orchestra chart that she already had, that she did. So that isn't even it's one of our arrangers, but he took it from a bigger version. But our whole point was, what's going to make you feel comfortable? Because we also had in the book, How Can I Ease the Pain, which is one of Lisa Fisher's, most famous chart-hitting tunes. And she wanted to do Overjoyed, which I love. And we had that in the book.
Great tune.
Yeah, thank you. Well, don't thank me, thank Stevie. But
dig.
So basically, I didn't pick. When I say the music it's not mine. I let what everyone feels comfortable on, and then we go from there. If anything that I had to do as far as a production vibe on, with the music, was the addition of Jesse Fisher on organ. I've always wanted to do that. But even that, I didn't know what he was going to play till he got there. I was like, hey, just jump on this. You think this would be cool? Nicholas Payton, I called that Morning. So, he wasn't even, he just happened to be in New York. And as far as the rhythm section, that's the only one where I might have said, all right, I really want to hear Mark on this tune. I want to hear Anwar on this tune. But what that does is Anwar is on two tunes that he had never played before. He's reading them there, and he's already a part of the family. So he's reading these tunes there, and you can't tell. Unless now I told you, and people are going to listen a different way. But it was really just about making everybody feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Just going back to Nicholas Payton, obviously he's great, but I did want to point out that Sean Jones is in your band.
Yes, without a doubt. Sean Jones is more than just in my band, and you get me emotional. Sean Jones is my brother. That's
Yeah.
family. That's family to the next level, and that's what I love about this whole record. I could pretty much say that about everyone on this record date. They're more than just musicians to me. They're friends and family.
You emphasize the importance of village is the term that you use, and your musicians are a big part of that. And one thing that I thought was very interesting, and I didn't know this until I downloaded the notes, that you did not arrange any of this music. Like, most of it's done by members of your band. Is that how it's always been? Do you write specifically for the band at times?
Well, it hasn't always been like that, but that was how it started. When we did the Intangible Between, that was when I started. That maybe a couple years prior, 2 or 3 years prior, I was called to arrange some tunes for the WDR big band, and it had to be the music of Ambrose Acker, Missouri. So that was my first real step into arranging for a big band, and I loved it. So by the time the Intangible Between came along, that record is where I first started doing some of my arrangements. Tough Love and That Too, those are my arrangements. But I respect the role of an arranger. And I would never call myself an arranger. So I've always kept people around me that are great arrangers. And I've been blessed with David Gibson, Todd Bayshore, Josh Lawrence, John Raymond, Troy Roberts. Almost everyone in the band is arranging for the band. Now, I may compose, like we're playing some of my music, and then they arrange those tunes. Or I have, arranged, as I said, on The Intangible Between. But when it comes to vocals and great vocal records, I'm be honest, that wasn't what I wanted to dive into. I said, I can orchestrate and lead the band in the way that needs to be, so here's this chart that, say, David Gibson does, and I know this irritates the hell out of David Gibson. I'll sit there and say, okay, that's cool. And I'll change some things around, maybe not his notes, but I'll change the form around. And I know that's for an arranger, like, but they give me that freedom so that I feel like I have some involvement in the sound of it. But a lot of it is the same thing I do in a small group, taking their big band arrangements and making sure they don't sound like big band arrangements, making sure they sound like a small group that just has more horns, if that makes sense, or more, more sheets of sound. But I don't want it to sound like a traditional big band, never have.
Tomorrow and today, beside you, all the way. If the world should stop revolving, spinning slowly down to die, I'd spend the end with you. And when the world was through, then one by one, the stars would all go out. Then you and I would say.
Is that why you chose the instrumentation that you did? Which, is a little more pared down, maybe a little more agile.
No, that instrumentation came out of necessity and finances. So we were 16 deep for years. I think the first 2 records are the full big band. And then we were doing a residency at Smoke Jazz Club. We did that for years. And it was just like, okay, how long are we going to try to fit on this stage? This is just hard. So I think it was 1 week of the jazz conference happening in New York, we played at Smoke. And I said, you know what? Just bring, I'm just going to hire 2 and 2. 2 trombonists, 2 trumpets. And we're going to see how, we didn't change any of the arrangements. We're just like, let's see how this sounds. And we were able to get such a big sound out of it that we stayed with that format and started adding the vocals in. And you know, I remember when I used to hear old people say this, and I'm not saying I'm old, but the older I get, I just say what I feel, you know. And I don't want to say that, but I will say, the older I get, I find it more necessary to speak honestly. And I dare somebody to say we don't sound like a big band. There was one person who did at one point. It was like, you only got 6 horns. And then we played, and we literally just played a battle with the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra, which was really great, with Adonis Rose. Adonis Rose had 20 people on the stage split, and then we're on the other side with our 9. So our band is half of what that is, and I dare somebody to say we didn't sound just as big and just as strong as the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra. So I guess it does go into that old saying. It's, you know, it's really just how you use what you got.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I was really intrigued by Raymond's tune, The Hymn.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also reading in the notes, it was the second time it was recorded. It didn't make the cut on an earlier record. What was the difference? Well, I guess it's because you were controlling the shots on this one that you were able to include it. Maybe just speak about the difference and maybe how the things evolved, because he's no longer in the band. As you mentioned, he's teaching in Bloomington now.
You know, him is another one where it goes back to like Walk a Mile in My Shoe. It didn't make the Intangible Between for whatever reason. And I really wanted it to, and it didn't. And we actually even sang more on the other one prior to that, kind of leads into the singing. But even when I did this in the studio, since the first time that I recorded him, I've changed management. I'm going back to one of my good friends, Brian McKenna. And he doesn't think I know him as well as I do. Most people don't think I know them as well as I do, because I like them not to know how well I do know them. But anyway, so we're recording him, and the whole time we're recording it, I was like, Brian is not going to want this one on the record. You know, I kept saying it because I know him. And when he listens to this, he's either going to laugh or lie and say, no, I loved it. But then we did the second take, and I was like, all right, he might like this a little more because I played more, you know, played piano a little more. The other one might have featured Caleb. But this song was, as you know, is totally different than the rest of the record. It's not like, you know, all these vocal tones. This song is what it is. And what I loved about it, even though I was sitting there saying, man, Brian is not going to want this on there, I also said, so what? It was such a refreshing feeling to know that it was going to be on there because I wanted it on there. And I lost that feeling, you know, over the last couple records, which I love. I love my other records on Smoke. But that freedom to say, I want this on here. I know this doesn't reach this, you know, this doesn't satisfy this radio thing. This doesn't satisfy this. This doesn't satisfy this. But this is my shoe. This is where I'm walking right now. And if you don't allow me to do this, you're actually erasing a part of my story, you know. And I know people don't really get that when they're like, you shouldn't do this, you should do this. You should do what you want to do. You should do what you want to do. And if that's the song that you want on this record, you know, and it is, you know, I looked at it. The reason it was the first song we recorded for this session. And at one point I was going to make it the first song on the record, but I didn't think the world was going to be ready for that. Like, to start off with that one and then to stay in there, you know, I was like, let me just give them something else first. And then they jump in there. But I grew up in the Pentecostal Church of God in Christ. And, you know, I remember the benediction and so many different other parts of the service. And the parts of the service that I remember just were like goofy. Were getting me to, you know, like, oh, we're getting near the end, you know, we're in the middle. So I knew based on the songs and the music. So when I hear that song, that kind of, for me, is you know, the organ prelude, for lack of better words. When you're walking in the church and you hear something playing, that's the beginning. So for me, that was the prelude to the rest of the record. And although I didn't have it as the first song on the record, I did want it to serve that purpose.
What I was going to ask about before is when I first reached out to you, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, you were going on tour. You were on tour with a trio with Bob Hurst, and I can't recall who the drummer was. Is this an established another project of yours?
The drummer was Mark Whitfield Jr.
Oh, okay, all right.
On that one, or it could have been Tane because I did two different ones. One was
maybe
with
maybe it was maybe it
Yeah,
was
that might have been
Jeff
Tane.
Watts. Yeah.
The short answer is yes, no. Meaning, once those are, like I said, they're part of the family. So it's a project, it's a trio, and hopefully, those gentlemen are available when I get that opportunity to go out on the road as a trio. But also with that group is Lucas Curtis, Mark Whitfield II, Marvin Smith, sorry, Eric Reeves. Now she waits with all of those different. So one of the other things that they wouldn't let me walk in, as part of when I say they, the industry, is the fact that I will enjoy doing multiple projects. I enjoy doing multiple things. I don't want to, but the industry sometimes needs to say, well, what are you doing right now? And how about I'm just being Orrin right now? And this is maybe in March, I want to play trio. But in April, I would love to go out with the Captain Black Big Band. And then in May, hey, we can do a Tar Baby tour, And then in June, we do a trio tour or a quartet tour, or even my Brazilian band. But I haven't been given that right by the industry, where I've seen other people have that right, go out with one band, and then next week they're like, oh, they're touring with that band, and everything is okay, and they're happy to see multiple sides of that artist. When I say there, I mean the audience is happy to see multiple sides of that audience. It seems like I've been penalized for having those multiple sides. I mean, I've had, what are you doing now? And then the worst time, honestly, I'm sorry for just people that, hey, I'm walking a mile in my shoe right now. The worst time was being in the Bad Plus. I spent however many years as an artist trying to develop what I wanted to do as a leader. Then I join a band and I have to become that, and almost only that, because now I'm competing with myself. I can have one or two little gigs, but promoters are saying, oh, well, he's going to be here with the Bad Plus. Oh, well, now, before it was, well, he'll be here with the Mingus Big Band, or he'll be here with Sean Jones. So I've always been penalized for doing multiple things, whereas I see it happening all over the place. So the answer to your question is, I would love to play more with Robert Hurst, Mark Whitfield, Jeff Tane Watts, Marvin Smitty Smith, everybody that I am blessed to call a friend and a brother and sister. And that's what I want to do. And I would love for the audience and the industry to allow me to create a legacy without being penalized for it.
That's strong. I hear you on that one. I was going to ask you about the Bad Plus. I was a little reticent to do so, but since you brought it up, I thought that might have been the case, because I read that you were there for 3 years. And, and tying this into what you were saying before about your frustration about not being able to get the tours that you want to do. I mean, they're a brand name, right? And they have been for a couple of decades, and I'm sure they're everywhere. And I could see that as being frustrating when, you kind of have to mold yourself and to, wear someone else's shoe for that gig, if you will.
Yeah.
Orrin, before I let you go, man, what's next? And one other thing, so if you bring this band, let's say you get that, killing Japanese tour with the Captain Black Big Band, are you going to take all 4 vocalists?
I would love to. I would love to. Honestly, going on tour with the amazing Lisa Fisher would be awesome. I would love to revisit the band with Diane Reeves one more time. We've done it twice. I'd love to revisit Kurt Elling in the band, So all of those, I'd love to do it. And then also bringing the vocalists that have sang with the band that are local here, like Paul Jost and Joanna. We're doing some other things, going to try to include Bilal. So the quick answer is, I would love to go out and tour with the entire band with all four singers. As I've kind of touched on it, but I grew up, my father was a playwright and my mother was a singer. So I grew up in theater and I grew up just watching productions. So I would love, that's a part of my shoot. And I would love to take that and just put together an amazing show that has every part of what everybody wants to do. It's like you feature tenor saxophones and you feature a song, and it's just an experience. And we, Captain Black Big Band, knows how to bring experiences to you. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2025.
Sounds great. Orrin, thank you for your time and for your music. Peace.
Thank you.
Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Van Doren Reeds and Mouthpieces. Be sure and check out the Van Doren Advisory Studio in New York City for all your sound sculpting needs. Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Arlen's Good Beer in Bowling Green, Ohio. Engineered by Marco Mendoza. Visit his website at engineeredbymarco.com. The theme music is Hide Seek Find from the record Beatitude, out on Tiger Turn. Produced by David Bixler. Be sure and subscribe to Liner Notes wherever you find your podcasts. If you like what you hear, I ask that you consider supporting Liner Notes financially. You can do this by going to the Liner Notes tab at davidbixler.com. Thank you for your consideration.